Yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody.
Are we good on our end?
There it goes.
Okay.
There it goes.
As I said, welcome everybody.
Welcome.
Let's just, a couple of housekeeping matters first. You had asked for a list of our negotiating team,
Yes.
and that's what that is. Do you need 2 copies of that, or?
One copy should be okay. Well, if you have 2 copies, I'll take them, but.
We do. I was gonna keep a copy for myself. but-
You can have, I'll keep this one.
Okay.
Everybody sign?
You keep track of these.
So that is our negotiating team. Roxy, between the last session and this session, I had sent you revised copies of our Article 16 and Article 18 proposal
Mhm.
because I had made some errors in the original ones. And I also prepared a couple of articles that we had agreed to TA on at the first session. They were Article 3, recognition, and Article 5, non-discrimination. So I've got 2 copies of each here, and Johnny's prepared to sign them if you looked them over and you think they're okay.
Okay, before we move on into the substantive stuff, let's make sure, I'll make sure that we get the sign-in sheets. But one of the key things I wanted to at least try and address first so that we can make sure we can get the rooms and postings and all things done is scheduling for the next session.
Okay.
We have this room and the same rooms reserved for Thursdays, I think for this month, is what the Delmar had done for us. We kind of did that tentatively just so we at least have it. And I didn't know if that was something that would work for y'all.
So the remaining Thursdays are what?
12, 19, 26.
I know that the 19th will not work
Okay.
because I'm scheduled to speak at a CLE event on that
Okay.
day and I can't get out of it. I have something right now scheduled for the 12th. I will see if I can reschedule that to the 13th. And what's the other date? The
26.
26th. As far as I know, the 26th is open. But I'll check that as well.
Okay.
So I can't meet on the 19th, but you could perhaps use the room that day. You know, we had talked on the last session about forming a subcommittee to study the whole EMS issue. And it could be that we could use the room for the subcommittee if we agree to do that. So I don't want the time to go to waste. So
okay. When do you think that you would be able to let me know if the February 12th would work out? Because if we're going to do that, I have to post it because of the weekend tomorrow.
I'm going to call my office on the first break, and so
Okay.
I'll be able to let you know
Okay.
later today. My calendar's on my computer.
I understand that. Okay. Well, I just wanted at least to lay the groundwork for the next negotiation session so we can, and then we can
Okay.
talk about February and March. I don't know, I think we may have the Thursdays also booked in March. I have to double check that. I think we requested it.
I'm pretty confident I can do the Thursdays in March, with the exception of the week of the March 15th. That is the spring break week. I'll probably be, I don't know if it is for Corpus, it is for Austin. And I'll be out that week. But other than that, I think that my Thursdays are good.
Okay. So that week of March 15th, do you anticipate that we may not have a negotiation session?
I anticipate that we won't.
Okay.
And if y'all want, we can even talk about adding a week onto the end of the 60-day period.
Okay, we'll talk about that.
I'll bet you I don't forget my computer again.
Okay, and with regard to the TAs, yeah,
What do I need to do?
these are the two
Yeah.
copies.
Just do,
Yeah, just hit me with
the box for you down at Gmail.
Should be the first there. I'll be right back.
Take your time.
All right.
Do you want to wait until Johnny comes back?
No.
Okay.
That we probably can get a lot more done.
Okay, hurry, let's
Quick, quick.
Hurry up.
With the regard to the TAs, I just wanted to reiterate our understanding that these are tentative agreements, and as the negotiations go on and we start putting together what will become the contract, that they may be subject to reopening, and that they're not firmly agreed upon until it's part of the entire contract and they're ratified and executed. I just want to reiterate that.
That's right. I mean, that, in fact, that's my understanding. TAs can be reopened. We hope that doesn't happen too often,
Right.
obviously. Both sides, I know, hope that.
Right.
But I can give you an example that came up today. We were looking at the seniority provision in one of our proposals that we sent you today, and they said, well, there's a special thing that we may need to think about with the EMS on seniority, and I pointed out to the team, or they pointed out to me, well, we could reopen that. Even if we TA'd that, we could reopen it and revisit it if something came up.
Okay. With that in mind, we're prepared to sign the non-discrimination tentative agreement.
Okay.
And in regard to the recognition, I had not seen some of my own notes the last time. We do recognize that we do, there's no question that a recognition would appear in the contract. But when I'm further reviewing this and then in reviewing all the proposals that you have so far put on the table, one of the things that I would like to do in order to tentatively agree this is to be able to see what the contract's going to what the contract's going to look like, and how it's going to affect the bargaining unit. See who is covered by that bargaining unit. So if you would oblige me and to just maybe table this tentative agreement until we look a little bit, until we start going down, and when we talk about wages and et cetera, see who it really affects, and then we can further talk about this.
I think I see where you're going. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
I mean, the recognition clause here really kind of mirrors the statute.
It does, you're right.
And, but I know that, for example, assistant chief, deputy chief, there are appointment provisions and things like that. That doesn't make them not members of our bargaining unit, it's just that we've negotiated specific provisions for them. But I understand that.
And that's my reason. I just, so that we don't have to reopen it, I want to table it so that we can have just the discussions when the issues come up and they become apparent to us. And that way we talk through it and we both are on the same understanding as to what we want this recognition to accomplish for both.
Yeah,
parties.
I mean, I don't think we can negotiate them out of the bargaining unit because it's statutorily defined by the bargaining statute itself. But we certainly can negotiate special provisions for them in which they're treated differently. The appointment procedure and the pay being two examples for those positions.
And those are the issues that I have in mind when I'm thinking.
And I'm going to give you an assistant chief and deputy chief article today that I think, I better not say that yet. I haven't reviewed it with my own team.
Okay. Okay, but as we go on, I think it will become important, and like you said, I don't want to agree and then go back, and then it's going to get confusing, so I would rather us table this so that as the issues come up, we can discuss them and we'll do that. So I'm gonna put this as a,
Okay. Now, let's talk about another non-substantive issue, because I think it's a concern to my team. We did, and I hope you check us out on that, we did, as we agreed, pull down the Become a Hero poster from our website.
yes.
And I know that the city purported to pull down all the stuff about the 2014 negotiations from its website. But there's still stuff on there that you can get to, and I did it myself from my computer. Wouldn't
Is that
try to do it
today?
from junk. No, it was last week.
Okay.
But well, there were several things.
And
you know,
I can, did.
like there was a one, that said, city clarifies inaccuracies in fire union political advertisements and things like that. And I couldn't get it directly from the website, but what I did was, your city website has a search engine. And if you go to that search engine and you just click on fire negotiations, it pulls down a bunch of 2014 stuff.
Okay.
That I think that you removed the tab to it, but you didn't necessarily remove it.
Well, did you contact my office or talk to Lilia at some point last week after you discovered this?
I don't know, did I?
Yeah.
Oh.
I think so. So, and that's what I was gonna say. When we initially
I've
did
slept
it,
since then.
Okay.
I think you talked to Lilia, and
Okay.
Since then it has been addressed. Initially, we had taken down the tab of the active pages, and unfortunately, you know how on these websites there's a lot of inactive pages with documents that get saved, and I guess what happened was that it could be done by the search engine. Once you notified Lilia, we notified the people that handle that for us, and as far as I had been told, I believe that they have deleted all of the inactive pages and the inactive documents. So it was no intention of leaving them up there, it was just kind of a logistical thing on how the website is run.
Mhm.
And, the fact that you had to go through the search engine to specifically search that document, and that's when it pulled up. It was not an active or live page, it wasn't something you could easily access. But my understanding is that out of an abundance of caution, we have went ahead from the IT side and deleted those inactive pages and the inactive,
Is this
No,
today?
they're still.
They're still there.
okay.
There's still 3
The
pages.
thing is if you go in.
Now, are you talking about news releases or
I
news?
guess so.
Because
It's
that's a
city confirms
different-
expiration date of fire union contract resulting in cancellation of contract.
What we discussed at the last negotiation session was taking down the tab. You asked us to take down the tab for the 2014 fire negotiations that were present on the the city's website. And that's what we discussed, and that's what we agreed to do. And that tab was the one that had all the documents that were exchanged at the table, and it had all the minutes, it takes minutes, and that's what we're doing. Now, if you're asking us to,
I am asking you to pull down these, because one of the ones that's still up there is, a thing about that we've demanded 31.8 million in current contract negotiations, which is,
now at the same time as the fire union deleting from the internet, from the entire internet, all of their news and press releases regarding the same?
I think we have already, haven't we? I think we have, yeah. I mean, in other words, you go on our website, it should be a blank page as to the 2014, let's call it snafu. And that's what we're asking y'all to do too, so that we're starting on a new page on 2015. And if you find that we haven't, then point it out to us and we'll get our web person working on it.
Well, the news, the news releases were separate and apart from that 2014 negotiation tab, and that wasn't my understanding, and I apologize. I don't know how hard that's going to be or how easy it's going to be. So if you would allow me to, at least during our caucus, find out information about that and try to figure out
Sure.
what it is, and we'll work on that. Our intention, and Craig, we have from the very beginning, is to focus on these negotiations here to end up with a contract. We don't need all this outside stuff to be, to affect the business that we're trying to conduct here. Okay?
Yeah, and I understand that, and I'm just trying to keep us, eyes on the prize, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And I think it'll make my folks feel better if we're able to do that.
Yeah, now, and of course, I have to find out because I don't know how the city's archive system is done. So, you know, if you Google it, it's gonna come up. I don't know that we can control, you know, that part.
Yeah,
But from what we can control, I will find out information as to what can be done and how hard it will be and whether it's, you know, doable and how quickly, and then we'll revisit the issue. again.
Okay.
Okay?
Sounds good. I think that's the preliminary matters. We have sent you, hopefully, new proposals on the following articles: 13, sick leave; 14, other supplemental benefits; and then 19, personal leave; 20, injury leave; 21, work schedules; 26, severability; 27, negotiation of successor agreement; 29, no strike, no lockout, no furlough; 31, drug and alcohol testing. I hope to have for you later today a new Article 32, deputy chief and assistant chiefs.
Okay.
I don't think that's in the status sheet that I gave you. And if I had my computer, I would send you an updated status sheet. I'll try and get Alex to send me that from my computer to Johnny's and provide it to you later today.
Okay.
It'll just show all these. So there should be about 9 proposals that came to you. Hopefully a 10th will be coming to you a little bit later.
Okay. Let me go over them again because I just have them by email. It's union or association proposals. I have 13, 14, 19, 20, 21, 26, 27, 29, and 31.
That's it.
Okay, those are the ones that came in through
Mhm.
the email.
And
Okay.
that should be 9, right?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay. What?
Okay, let's see. So what we'll do is, of course, we just got these, so when we caucus, we'll go over these and come back with the questions just like we did the last time.
Very good.
You also sent me revisions
To
to
16.
Article 16, sick leave, and Article 18, the drag-up pay.
And that's because when I got back in caucus with the guys last time, they pointed out to me that despite my earnest attempts, I had not captured the current practice
Oh, okay.
in some ways. And so the changes were made simply to conform to the current practice. There shouldn't be, I mean, they are substantive changes in that they're different from the original ones, but it's because the original ones didn't serve their intended purpose.
So the intent, as I understood that on the first session, was
Mhm.
on 16 and 18 for the most part. The intent was to have them basically the same as they were the last contract.
Right.
As I recall, though, there were some additions to Article 16 on the sick leave and the sick leave pool.
Let me open it up and look at it real quick. I want to refresh my memory. Yeah, there was, with regards to the sick leave pool.
The extra sick leave would go to the sick leave retirement pool, right?
Right, right. So that, and that might mean that they don't have to donate this additional time, the 2 sick leave days, quite as often as they do now, but. And so that is a change from current practice. But, I mean, that isn't what I changed in the.
Okay, what you wanted to change was to capture what the practice was in the last contract.
Mhm.
Okay. And the addition that I understood, and it's still marked here on this revision, was the addition of educational and incentive pay on the drag-up pay rate. Can I ask you, I looked through my notes.
That drag up as the Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't have it in my notes from the last time. I thought I had asked you the last time, but I didn't write down the answer. On Article 18, drag up pay, that's Section 3, figuring out the drag up pay rate, what was the reason for adding the educational incentive pay?
You know, that's such a normal part of the firefighters' overall pay that we felt it was appropriate, and I didn't quite understand why it had been taken out originally, but, you know, so I think that's the short answer. Of course, I can always elaborate.
Okay, we'll go over those.
Now, the formulas on the drag up pay rate, other than that, are the same. They're simplified, but.
The only addition was that adding the educational incentive pay on those formulas.
Right, that's it. And I highlighted that so you wouldn't think I was trying to pull a fast one on you.
I saw
I'm
that.
trying to highlight the things that might affect pay, so to make sure, because there is a lot of, you know, language change to simplify language that's not meant as substantive change
Okay.
in these articles, but, and you'll see with the new proposals I gave you today, I'm trying in every case to point out the sources so that you can compare on them.
Okay. And I just wanted to follow up on some questions and information that we had asked you with regard to the Article 10 wages and Article 11 supplemental pays. I just wanted to follow up and see, we had asked for, you had made some statements and we wanted the data that you were using and relying upon to show that Corpus Christi was behind the curve on the wages and the add-on pays.
And we do have, I've been provided a chart by my team,
Okay.
and it's right there on my computer.
On your desk.
And I will talk to them. I'm sure some of them have that chart information
Okay.
too.
Does
So-
that include the comparable cities that they were talking about as well?
Yeah, it's my recollection off the top of my head that there are about 20 cities in the chart, and that they're listed by population size, so you can at least make that comparison.
Okay.
You know, and I have one here that's not the current, so I'm not going to give it to you, but I'll just
Sure.
show you. We have a chart
Okay.
with information like this that we'll provide. So Corpus is like the 8th largest city of the Texas cities. These are all Texas cities. But I think you'll see that some cities that are quite a bit smaller than you are, you know, paying more than you on some of these supplemental pays.
Okay.
In some cases, quite a lot. There's some that are outliers, and I don't know exactly why, but
Okay.
what we've done is we've prepared an average, so.
Okay, we'll review that information when we get it. And in addition to that, we had asked if you had done any costing on those proposals.
Yeah, your question was,
I had also asked whether you had figured out what the proposals cost in terms of the wages and the supplemental
well, we
wages.
figured you'd do that for us.
Okay.
You tell us, and then we would look at your figures and see if we agreed. But, you know, no, we have not specifically costed them out. But I have made changes that I think greatly reduce it from the $31 million figure that y'all were using last year, because the figure that you used last year included staffing increases in building the station, and both of those have been taken out of our proposal now. So the cost should be quite a bit less.
As
Now,
a-
Johnny asked me, if we wanted to talk about cities that are comparable, I mean, do y'all have specific cities that you feel are more comparable than others, or?
Well, we have, I have to look at what data that we have. We wanted to look where you're coming from so that we can figure out where we're coming from and see. I don't have that
It is
available
kind of
today.
hard, because Corpus is in a, you've got about 300,000 people, and you've got 7 cities that have more, that, and the closest being to Corpus in size is Arlington with 380,000. And then below y'all with 300, it falls to Lubbock at 225. So you do seem to kind of be in a gap population-wise. So when we talk about comparable cities, I think we're going to have to consider other things than just population alone.
That's what, that was gonna lead to my next question was, is that how the comparable cities were picked solely on the population? Was there any other factors?
No. What we've done is rather than trying to train the comparable cities, because you would come up with one list and we'd come up with another. We just listed pretty much the top 20 cities.
Okay.
Actually, more than 20. And what Johnny just told me is that they're the cities that are identified in the police department contract currently. So those are the ones that we're using for right now. We're certainly open to considering, coming up with a separate list of comparables, but for right now, that's what we've got and that's what we're using. We're not, even necessarily limited to comparing ourselves to cities in the great state of Texas. I know, for example, in El Paso recently, we used cities in New Mexico and Arizona as well as Texas cities.
Okay. See, and then the one more thing, or 2 more things, so we still need to finalize the sign-in sheets. But you had asked us previously about interest in interest-based bargaining on the EMS issue, on that one issue. I'm still talking to our side about that. I wanted to get a little bit more of, I wanted to figure out what you envision this looking like. I know that you said there would be a committee.
Be a committee, I would suggest we have 3 people from the union maybe and 3 people from the city. They need to be people that are kind of conversant with the issues. On the one hand, the city has the interest of ensuring that it has sufficient paramedics and EMTs to staff the ambulances continuously. On the other hand, you have a number of firefighters who have lived under a set of rules whereby, after a certain amount of time on the ambulance, they get off of that. And so the question is, we recognize the city's goal. Hopefully the city sees, the interest that we have and not, harming certain firefighters more than others to the extent we can help that. So the idea is the subcommittee tries to come up with a sort of a win-win solution. It may involve grandfathering some people. It may involve, and I'm just throwing out ideas here right now. I'm not making any concrete suggestions. For example, you probably already are doing this. Everybody that new that comes in is paramedic or EMT certified or whatever. And comes in with the understanding that they're going to be required to maintain those certifications, for the life of their career, as is done in, some other cities. Those sorts of things, so that we make sure that the city's able to meet its staffing needs, and that the union is able to assure that people that have rights that are sort of vested, are able to have some assurance that those rights will continue to be respected. There's also this whole issue, and so it kind of rolls into the promotions thing too, that you have these two separate tracks, you know, firefighter, driver, firefighter 2/driver and firefighter 2 EMS. And those two tracks, I think, ought to be looked at in the context of this committee as well. Corpus is kind of unique, to my knowledge, in having those two separate tracks. And so I'm not suggesting that Corpus should do away with that. It probably makes a lot of sense for Corpus. But they can just look at the whole thing. I mean, the idea is to look at the whole thing with a fresh set of eyes and come up with something that respects prior given rights, but serves the city's interests in making sure that it can meet its staffing needs. And so and then the committee only comes up with a sort of a set of proposed solutions that they then bring back to the bargaining committees. And we actually hammer out the language of a deal here. I mean, so we're not doing the deal really away from the table. The subcommittee reports back to the bargaining committees. But, you know, for this kind of thorny issue, that kind of informal, smaller group setting, sometimes and where we're both trying to, you know, solve the same problem, I found that it can facilitate. It's a lot better on operational stuff than it is on money stuff. You really can't get a subcommittee to decide how much you're going to pay us. Although we're willing to try, we're ready to appoint our members right now.
Okay, well, I don't have an answer for you quite yet. I was requesting more information so that I can provide that, and that way we can evaluate that. I will let you know.
Okay.
I need to sign these. I'm gonna finalize these sign-in sheets.
And when you're done, if I could get a copy, that would be great.
Yeah, we're signing 2 for the 22nd and 2 for the 5th.
Oh, you just reminded me, another preliminary matter. When y'all are posting the notices of the bargaining meetings,
Yes.
if you could copy Johnny and Carlos,
Okay.
as well as me on those, because Carlos has to go to the chief and get permission for the folks to be on.
Okay.
So if he gets those as soon as I do, I didn't realize that, and I didn't get the notice to Carlos until kind of late, so.
Okay. So you want me to copy you,
Carlos and Johnny.
Which email addresses do I use for Carlos and Johnny? The city addresses or
You can
the
use-
other
You
ones?
can use the one you've been using, the Carlos Local 936@gmail.
Okay. And I think, Johnny, yours is a Gmail as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'll use a Gmail.
Do you want, he actually has his on the card.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be happy.
It's the
to
same
do
one
that.
you've been sending.
Also, as soon as they're posted, they have now done something, done an electronic bulletin board that's found on the city's website. It's under the city secretary tab. So if you go into a city secretary, on the left side, there's a column that says electronic bulletin board that has all public postings. And if you click on that, on the very bottom under miscellaneous, it says fire negotiation meeting. So if there's any request, you could pull it up, print it up. And
Okay.
I think it's done pretty quickly. And I usually put, for Thursday, I usually post them as early as I can on Friday. So, okay? If your email's down or something like that, there's always that tab you can go to. Okay, did everybody sign on this? Did you want to sign this tentative agreement on the non-discrimination?
Sure. I'm gonna let Johnny sign it.
Sure, I'll sign this.
I try to leave as small a footprint as possible. Then,
There's so many jokes there.
yeah, but we ain't gonna tell them all now, are we?
Today's the 5th of February.
It is, yes.
If it all goes, all I'm saying is if it all goes bad, I don't wanna be there.
Just saying.
Although I guess I am on videotape.
Is that the only copy you have?
No, there are
So
two
this-
copies.
I wrote on, I wrote on mine, but this was the one she gave me.
You wanna look at it, make sure it's. We can talk about that. Kind of explain it to you, but. I can show you this one. This much.
We get everybody from
You can go and keep that one locked, and then we'll keep the other one.
Oh, because they signed on the bottom. There's a Jerry from the second one.
Okay, are these both copies for, oh,
It's just so y'all can look at the copies. On one of them, somebody had signed on the top and then scratched it off and signed on the bottom.
Steve.
oh, yeah.
So just so you can make sure they're
Oh,
the.
we didn't do this last time.
So you wanna?
Yeah, I just get one copy. One of the copies.
Just let me see one back.
I'll give you the originals to you so you can just turn them in. Because I will lose them.
These people on my desk.
Oh, you, no, you.
Would be okay?
Okay.
You guys want to do Are those two different ones, Carla?
One's for the 5th, one's for the 27th.
No, that's
Craig, on those, the issue with the news releases and stuff, I need to, the people I need to talk to are currently at that state of the city, and it will last till like 1:30, so I probably won't have any info until the late afternoon. Just
Okay.
letting you know.
Good.
Go ahead if you want to. Might not like what you see. Maybe I'm gonna get you to let me go.
I can see that happening.
Okay, if you don't have anything else, I think we're gonna caucus to go look over all of the proposals that you have submitted to us. That'll take us a while, it'll take us through lunch, so,
I'm gonna show these guys these other two proposals, at least one of which I think we'll get to you today, the one on assistant and deputy
Okay.
chiefs.
so let's see. What, it's 11:30 right now. Let's I guess I'll go to your, caucus room about 1:30 and see where we're at.
Okay.
And, then we can see where we're at and see what time we can come back.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thank you.
And we'll also work on this economic data.
Sorry. Okay, welcome back. With regard to future negotiation sessions,
Mhm.
I was able to confirm that we're available on Friday, February 13th.
Very
And
good.
we do have these rooms available.
Okay,
So we'll post that date. Beginning 9:30, same time, same place. And then I was also able to confirm our availability and this location for Friday, February 20th,
okay.
the 15th. So that'll be the next 2 weeks. And then we're already set. We have these rooms reserved, and I'll double check on that for Thursday, February 26th, which I believe you stated you're available on that date as well.
Yes,
So that'll be the third one. And then we're also good on Thursday, March 5th.
yes.
So I'll double check. I think we already have that reserved. So at least we have 4 set. I do have to check on the week of March 11th or 12th, because that would be on a.
I have a-
you
yeah.
have a CLE on that Thursday, and we're gonna check on the availability on that Wednesday.
Okay,
And we did state that there will be no sessions on the week of March 15th.
right.
And I will talk to my team and my side about adding that week time to the negotiation period, and I'll let you know about that.
Okay,
Okay, so what we'll do is we will prepare the postings for the next 4 sessions accordingly. It would be February 13th, February 20th, February 26th, and March 5th of 2015 in these same rooms. And
Okay.
I'll go ahead and post them all at the same time, and I'll email you, Johnny Ray, and Carlos Torres on the Gmail accounts.
okay.
Okay?
And then what about, the week following spring break? I think that date is
Oh.
also the 26th.
March 26th. I need to double check on that. I think that we have room availability, and I just need to make sure that my team is available. So I need to check on that one as well.
Well, I'll leave that open until I hear from you, but probably ought to nail it down pretty quick.
Absolutely. I'll try to nail it down tomorrow, and I'll probably just email you with whether we're, whether it's available or not, and if we can agree that way, we can just go ahead and get the posting done.
Okay.
Get that out
Very
of the
good.
way. Okay. I'm still trying to figure out, you did ask me about checking on the news releases, that were on our, I guess on our website or on the search.
Mhm.
When we first spoke, what we were originally talking about, what we originally agreed to was the, taking down the 2014 negotiations tabs and the content that was on there, and we went ahead and we had done that. We also, deleted inactive pages that you couldn't get to, but I guess you could get to at some point if you did some sort of search. As I understand it, the search engine on the city webpage is run or serviced by Google. It's a Google search engine.
Mhm.
So we cannot, of course, control the Google search. With regard to press releases, the city has a 7-year retention policy, and the way that we archive our items are online, and those are all time-stamped and archived, so for those purposes, we at this time can't really take those down without going against the retention policy. We'd be taking, deleting records that we need to maintain pursuant to the law. So that's as far as I got.
Okay.
With
Is the
regard
only way to get
information.
to those 3 things to actually do a search on the Google search engine that's on the site itself?
As far as I understand, yes, but I need to confirm that. But that is the only way I think that you can get to that,
Okay.
and I will double check that.
Okay. Okey-doke.
Okay? Okay, we received the and reviewed the 9 proposals that you had given to us this morning. And then, there are 2 additional proposals that you will be presenting to us this afternoon that I think that we can go over. We've been able to review those as well. What I will be doing is kind of the same thing that we did last time, is go through them one by one, and I'll be asking questions and for some clarification so that I can go back and explain the basis and the reasonings for your proposals.
Okay. Are you wanting me to just explain them generally, or you want to have specific?
Yeah, I have questions. I'm gonna go through and I'm just pulling up my notes.
Okay, so you want to take them in like the
We'll take them
numerical
in the
order?
numerical order that they came in. Of course, it's not consecutive, but we'll go in the numerical order that we received them in.
Okay.
And we'll go ahead and start with Article 13, the health and life insurance.
Mm-hmm. Before you start, there are a couple things I would like to point out about it.
Okay, sure.
If you look at Section 1B, I don't know that that actually is currently what employees are paying, because there were some provisions in the current contract that allow you to bump that up based on certain cost factors. So we would need to double check those numbers. Also, if you look at the very last, I think it's the last page, there was something, let me see if I, no, I'm sorry, it's page 4. In the upper part of page 4, there's a couple of numbers that I don't know what the current number is. I presume that the number's gone down since y'all have offset some of those liabilities, but we would need to plug the current number in for the number that was in the old contract, which was that $4,653,000 number.
Okay, while we're on this page 4, I do have some questions and just comments on that particular issue. You're right, there is a past cumulative recorded OPEB liability that is adjusted, gosh, I can't remember if it's quarterly, if it's annually, Steve?
It's annual.
Annually, okay, and actually it was just recently adjusted. The way in your proposal right now, I know that we have a blank so that we can put in the current number. But you do have that it's agreed on August 1 of 2015. That's what the number is. We won't have that number until after the actuarial report for that date. So we just recently got a new adjusted number. So we would plug in the date that actuarial report came in.
Yeah, if you got that on October 1st, 2014, and that's the last number you have, then we would plug that in.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Do you know what that number is right now? I mean, because hopefully it's less than the 4.6 mil.
I do not know, and I don't know.
We can get that to you.
Okay.
We have it, we just don't know it offhand, but we can.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to spit out a number I don't know.
And y'all refresh my memory, what does OPEB stand for? Other
Post-employment benefits.
post-employment benefits, yeah.
No. It's 2 different things.
Is there a fund balance in the city care fire that's separate from this fund balance? I mean, I guess the city care fire is actually the self-insured pool of money that y'all put in?
Correct.
Do you
So
know?
So that $4 million is just the OPEB, that's the
Right.
liability.
Right.
I think the other number that's reflected is the one, was it 1.6 million or something? Is that
Yeah,
what
but
you're referring to?
saying that it won't fall below the 1.6.
Well, that was the number that we utilized as the fund balance at that time, the fire health fund balance, so, that number will be different as well.
Okay. So if you could get me that number at the same time, that would be helpful. Okay. So what other questions, Roxy, on Article 13?
Let me give you a chance real quick.
It was the fund balance, it was 1.633, it's reflected on page 3, and we just agreed to say 1.6 even. That's what it was at that time.
Yeah. I think what I'm hearing him say is that since then, it's risen to like, I mean, the actual balance in the fund rose to like 6 million.
Yeah, I don't know what the number is, but that's the number that's gonna be adjusted according to whatever it is now.
Okay, okay. So, in other words, let's say that there's 4 million in there right now, we would change this number to 4 million and say we're gonna keep that as our target goal. Is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily. I mean, the 1.6 was just the number that we said. If it ever fell below that number, we would no longer take those adjustments to the OPEB line.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right, that was just our safety net.
Okay,
It was a threshold that was built in so that the fund balance wasn't depleted solely to take
pay
care of the
OPEB.
OPEB past
Okay.
balance.
if we could get from you just information about what the current fund balance is now, that's probably
Sure.
pretty easy to come up with, so. Ought to be easier than working this PC.
PC. It's like
PC, that's
it's-
well named when you think about it. At the top, at the bottom of page 2.
Okay.
Both of those were just intended to eliminate language about an event that had already happened, and was
That's
just
right.
history.
And also, section 1B, you said you wanted to double check what the premium numbers are, whether they are in fact what are reflected here.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I think I heard from my team that they have been adjusted, but we weren't able to come up quickly with what the new numbers were, so I just left. Or maybe they hadn't been adjusted.
They have.
No, in fact, I checked with a couple of my folks, and they were paying at these numbers, so I assume that they haven't changed, but we want to double check that to make sure.
Okay. But you understand in the past that these were just what they were at the time, and there is a mechanism by which these premiums change within the last plan document.
Right,
Okay.
and in fact, I think that the way that is calculated is described in the proposal itself,
Right.
so. I mean, this is basically a status quo proposal. At the end, I've eliminated, I'm looking at page 8 at the bottom. I eliminated that item 3 there, but I just made it its own separate section 2 to more adequately describe what the current practice is with regards to life insurance.
Okay.
And then items 4 and 5, immediately above section 2, I eliminated because those were one-time lump sum payments and that have occurred presumably. And
Right. They have
The language-
occurred, and we don't need that language anymore.
right. The only change that we made really is that item number 2 there. We suggested a contribution of 45 per employee per month instead of 30. And then that other language there, I was just trying to make it current, but you know, what was under the old contract was that you paid a lump sum of $150,000 on August 1 of 2008, and then thereafter you paid an amount that was adjusted slightly under. So what I'm saying is, we would, whatever August 1st of the first contract year is, let's say it's August 1st, 2015, we would have to get the new number to plug into that gap, and then we would allow you that we would still use the same escalator that y'all have been using in the past. So that's not really a change except for the $45 versus $30 amount, or it's not intended to be.
Okay. You said something about that we were making a contribution that was less than the 150?
No, it's actually more.
Oh, okay, because
A-
there's an
as-
escalator, a contribution escalator that's built in here.
Right, and so the number that you're currently paying, that you probably paid this past August 1st, was probably somewhere, you know, higher than 150.
Okay.
And I'm saying that we would determine the new number for August 1st of 2015, utilizing this escalator formula, and plug that in, and then keep the same escalator formula in the contract. It wouldn't really be a change, it would just be updating it.
Okay.
The only change, again, is to that 45 versus 30 per month.
And what is the basis of moving, changing that amount from $30 to $45?
You know, I mean, the supplemental insurance programs that, you know, like anything else, the costs go up, and so it's to help us, you know, keep insurance at the same level of protection we've had it in the past. And, you know, there's nothing sacrosanct about a particular figure, but that's the goal, is to maintain our current ability to provide supplemental insurance that we're providing. Cost of doing business just keeps going up.
And the supplemental insurance programs for active and retired firefighters, is that what's called the Health and Benefits Trust Fund? Is that the same thing?
I have to look to Johnny and the team for that. I don't know the details of their supplemental insurance plans.
That is the Health and Benefits Trust Fund.
Okay, so when we're talking about for this money is for use for supplemental insurance programs for active and retired firefighters, what you're talking about is that Health and Benefits Trust, I think is what it's called later somewhere in the contract.
Yeah, it's down, it's referred to right there in those eliminated paragraphs 4 and 5. It looks like under the last contract, y'all made a couple of additional lump sum payments to help with the same types of problem that I was just talking about. But so this is a different way to address that. Rather than asking for lump sum when we get a little bit behind on it, we simply ask for an increase in the monthly amount.
Are there any other supplemental insurance programs for the active and retired firefighters other than the Health and Benefits Trust Fund?
I don't think so, are they?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
That's
Maybe
it.
the dental fund?
Dental's on there, I think.
So it sounds like there's a health and benefits trust fund and a dental fund.
And these are two funds that are run by the union, by the association. Is that
Mhm.
right? Okay. And on the dental fund, what kind of
When
what
you
is-
say run, I mean, I want to be clear, we
Well, they-
sponsor the programs.
They
I mean,
sponsor the
obviously we
program,
purchase.
they run it, they make distributions, they're the ones that administer it.
Do we have an outside administrator for these funds?
We have a board,
Trustees.
we have a board of trustees that administers the fund.
Okay.
Okay, and that's the health and benefits fund?
Yes.
Okay. What about the dental fund? What does
Same
that fund
thing.
do? There's a board of trustees there?
Board of directors, I think is what they're called.
On this dental fund, is this for both active and retired firefighters?
Yes.
Okay, and dental, I'm guessing is an optional insurance that you pay separately for? Or additional?
You know, I don't know the answer to that.
I would be surprised if we mandate that anybody have the
Right.
dental insurance, but of course it's a very important benefit, especially for people with kids who need braces and that sort of thing.
Okay.
I believe the city gives us a monthly allotment in accordance with the terms of the contract, and that's what's used to reimburse the firefighters for their direct dental expenses that are covered as per whatever the schedule of benefits is.
Okay. Is that found in another provision other than what we're talking about here on page 8 of your proposal?
I don't know.
Okay. I'll look.
I don't think that the dental or the health and benefit plans are contained in the contract or as an appendix to the contract. I mean, if you want that information, you probably can.
Yeah, and I'm sure I can, I'm just trying to ask just general questions so I can
I
ask the, so I can figure this out. On the life insurance premiums, the city purchased life insurance, that's basically maintaining, as I can figure, for the status quo that was in the previous contract, is that correct?
Right, if you look at item number 3, it's the subsection A of section 2 is the same thing. The city maintains at no cost firefighters basic life insurance in an amount equal to their annual base salary. The optional life insurance provision is something that currently is being done, but it wasn't reflected in the contract, so I just added it
Okay.
as a subsection B. But that's really not a cost item to the city, it's just the firefighter can choose to buy additional life insurance over and above what the city purchases for.
Okay. Okay, moving on to Article 14, supplemental rights and benefits.
Oh, if you look at Article 14 of the current contract on page 47, I meant to ask my own team about this. That's in there, it shows that the trust has been created, the Health and Benefit Trust, and that the association indemnifies the city for claims based on the operation or administration of the trust.
What page is that?
Page 47 at the top, Article
I know I've
14.
seen it in there. Okay, it just didn't describe what exactly the trust, the Health and Benefit Trust was and what it actually did.
No, I'm sure there are trust documents that do describe that, and I don't think that we would have a problem with sharing that information, but the city's involvement is limited to just, providing the funds, and then we administer and accept liability for the administration of the funds. So. Going back to Article 13 for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny has just let me know that if you go back to that provision on page 8, I'm looking at subsection D2, that the $45 a month per employee is in fact used for the dental insurance program. The lump sum payment that you make each year is the amount that goes to the Health and Benefit Trust.
Oh, okay, that's not,
The language
clear.
doesn't capture that.
Okay.
And we could certainly modify the language to capture that, but I didn't realize that that was how they were doing it. So
Okay, so
I just
the-
really mirrored the current language.
the $45 per month per employee goes to the dental fund?
The
then?
dental insurance fund. They're not,
And then whatever the 150,000 plus the escalator goes to the, health
the
and
Health and Benefit
benefits.
Fund, which is supplemental insurance.
Okay, and the dental fund provides, money to the active and retired firefighters for their dental insurance.
Yeah, actually what they provide is there's a list of, benefits that are provided. You get this service, you get X amount of money from the plan.
Okay.
And that's what they do. I mean, they don't pay all dental.
Okay,
They just pay,
Percentages.
Yeah, a list of benefits that are provided, and it covers not only the firefighters, but also, I think, their families
Okay.
And the retirees.
and the retirees.
And then is that kind of the same concept on the health and benefits fund? 'Cause I know retirees get a, how does that work?
The health and benefits fund pays the retirees, a portion of the retirees' premium.
Health insurance.
So is the health and benefit fund limited to retiree health insurance premiums?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna ask because whether it covered any other supplemental insurance for active firefighters.
No.
The health and benefits trust fund is solely to help supplement the
Solely covered.
retirees to help offset their premiums.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Up until age 65, and then they,
When they're Medicare eligible, okay. Okay, so there's a cap on that, until they're 65. Okay. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Okay, let's see, on Article 4, Section 1, we have uniforms, and the, change that I could decipher from here was a,
Yeah, an increase in the monetary benefit. You said Article 4, but I think you meant 14.
14, excuse me.
Yeah, we just have asked for an increase in the benefit from 6750 to 100.
Okay,
And that really is there are language clarifications, but in substance, it's the same as the current.
what is the, increase up to $100 base, do you have the, what that's based on?
Not any specific data that I'm aware of, just the fact that firefighters are finding it increasingly difficult to purchase replacement uniforms, things that they need, based on the allowance that they're currently getting.
I think everything else was the same.
Well, the mileage thing I changed a little bit.
Yeah, I was just talking about Section 1. On Section 2,
Oh,
you increased the, I guess the threshold is to the least amount of cents per mile that firefighters would be reimbursed even during a emergency reduction.
yeah, I looked at the proposal that y'all had made at our last bargaining session, and you had it lowered down to 32.5% per mile, and you could make that reduction not only in an emergency, but I think it said like any special circumstance, and I didn't understand what a special circumstance might be that wasn't an emergency. But the IRS sets mileage rates for, I think most of the nation uses it, and it's my understanding that that's based on the determination of what it costs to operate the vehicle. And so when you pay firefighters less than that, and of course the current one I think is 57.5 cents, the one for 2015. When you pay firefighters less than that, basically they're losing money on the use of their car for the city. So, we felt we're not at all wedded to 56, but we kind of want to hear from the city when and in what circumstances. What I would say to you is, what was the special circumstance in which it's been lowered in the past, and what is there about 32.5 that is the number that you've selected. So, that's one certainly that we want to talk about more, but we just kind of want to understand where you're coming from.
Okay, I'll get you that information. Off the top of my head, just from my recollection, I think it's only happened once, but I cannot remember the circumstance. And so I will find that out and we'll discuss that further.
Okay. On section 3, meals, you had come back with a counter proposal suggesting $8. We had originally said 10, and so we just lowered our proposal to 9.
Okay.
I don't care whether it's Dairy Queen, McDonald's, Whataburger, the cost of the meal is going up. And so we think that number reflects actual cost. And my understanding of the practice is that sort of provides a ceiling, if you spend less than that, but they get less than that, so.
Okay.
These next 4 sections, relief, reassignment from fire prevention, assignment preference forms, and station assignment by seniority. I think there are no changes to the current practice. I tried to make the language a little bit easier to understand, but it was not our intent to change the current use of station assignment by seniority, and I have, in all cases, put the part of the contract that I plucked it from. I didn't see that either party had made a proposal in the last go-round to change the status quo, so.
Okay, so the intention is to maintain the status quo, and you were
Right, 4,
trying to
5,
just
6,
simplify
and
language.
7.
Okay.
Well, and I would say the same is true of section 8. And section 6, toxicology reports. My numbering got off, but obviously section 6 should be section 9. And the rest of the sections renumbered. What is labeled as section 7, but should be section 10, legal defense. I again think that maintains the status quo.
And it looks like section 4 was also previously in the last contract.
It was.
Okay.
I shortened it, but it is in the last contract, and it's not a substantive change. And I guess that should be section 11. So, really, these are pulled from various places, but there's really not much substantively different. We've asked for an increase in a couple of allowances, but a lot of it is sort of status quo.
Okay. Moving on to Article 19. It looks like on section A and B, you changed the language to simplify it. The intent was to leave the status quo on that?
Yes.
On the amount of days?
Yes. Yes, exactly. And even though your fiscal year has changed, in reliance on what you said at the last session, I left the date August 1st of 2015. You know, we had that discussion with regards to crediting of personal leave.
Right,
And
and
so-
that's my understanding, that
Yeah.
it's still done on August 1.
Now, I don't think it's with regards to personal leave, but with regards to something, maybe it's holidays. I think there is a special provision for personnel that work a 4-10 schedule. And we'll come to that somewhere, I'm just not seeing it right now.
Oh, I think that's later on.
Holidays, probably.
Yeah, instead of 8-hour holidays, they were giving 7 10-hour holidays.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And that's not actually a change from the current contract, that's the status quo, so.
I thought that was in here, let me just look at it.
It's not in the personal leave, it's either gonna be in the holiday article or,
It might have been in schedule.
Work schedule.
Oh, yeah, it's on schedules.
work schedules, okay.
Page 2 of work schedules.
Okay, well, we'll get there.
Okay.
It was on my mind, so I wanted to make sure. So I don't think we're really changing the status quo with regards to personal leave.
Now, there is a question on the schedule as it, appears here on D, and I know that this is the way it was in the last contract.
Mm-hmm.
One of the issues was that it, you know, in the last contract, the contract called for personal leave time to be given by each firefighter in order to compensate for the president's time off.
Uh-huh.
And the concern was that the personal leave that was contributed for that was not reflected in the schedule.
Yeah, I mean, to the extent that we require personnel to give personal leave to pay for the president's time off, what we could do is simply put a thing in here that, you know, in years where that deduction occurred, they make up the balance with other forms of leave. Sort of like what you've done for suppression shift personnel.
Okay.
You require 3 24-hour shifts to use the personal leave, and one of those shifts is they use vacation to make up the balance.
Okay.
I would assume that that's what we would do for everybody, that if they had to give whatever it is, 6 hours in a given year, that 6 hours would be taken out of that. They would make up the balance with vacation leave to be able to.
And I just
get
wanted
the
to
time off.
clarify that that's what the intent is, you know, because when you look at this and somebody who wasn't here and they say, well, I'm still entitled to 12 personal leave days, you know, that, I just want to be able to clear up any ambiguousness with regard to what the intent is here.
Mhm. Yeah, and I don't mind, you know, by way of counter, you know, you putting something in there, however, if,
Okay.
you know. Because I mean that's the way they're doing it right now, right?
Mhm.
And then you added this last sentence to section E, is that correct? However, a firefighter who suffers a duty-related death will be paid for any accrued but unused personal leave days.
I don't know that I did add that. I thought that. Let me see, Article 4, Section 7. It looks like I did add that.
Okay.
And I think I got the idea for that. I know that, for example, with the buyout of sick leave and or vacation leave, that there's some provision about line of duty deaths and getting paid in full for that. And so I think I was just keeping that same vein. And when we get to those leave articles, or we've already covered them, we can go back to them. I'm sure I can point out where I got that idea from.
Okay. Okay, moving on to Article 20
Okay.
on injury leave. Looks like Section A, for the most part, is that intended to maintain the status quo?
Yes. I mean, there's some parts that don't really, that are a little bit different from the status quo. We'll get to those, but that's not one of them.
Right, that's why I'm going section by section. On B, I didn't check to see if we had this definition already in the last contract.
It's not separated and labeled definition, but there is, let me see what. Did I not say where this came from?
Article 12 and 4.
Oh, that should be Article 12, Section 4.
Oh, is that what that means?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there is a definition if you look in paragraph 2 of Section 4 on page 43. So I just separated it out to make it easy to find. You know, I will say this, although we're saying that a line of duty, we're defining it here and it doesn't necessarily go along with workers' compensation statutes, you know that there's going to be very few line of duty illnesses or injuries that aren't also a workers' comp injury or vice versa. In fact, the benefits provisions for line of duty leave and the workers' comp statute have an offset provision.
That's right.
In the workers' comp statute itself. So, but it was in the contract, so I left it in.
Okay.
Section 2, I'm not sure, I'll let my guys chime in. It allows for you to work light duty if you have a non-job related injury that prohibits you from working as a firefighter. It gives you that same 1 year light duty option that is provided for line of duty injuries.
Okay. This is a new provision, a new proposed provision.
It's not in the disability thing, I don't think, but it,
Currently, what's that?
yeah, it's the current practice, so I put it in the
Okay.
contract.
So it would be a new provision, a new proposed provision to the contract, but it reflects what the current practice is.
Exactly.
On something like on section 2, on this proposed non-duty related injuries, is there any impact on, as to whether it was an injury that was there any implication if there's an injury that was done on an off-duty job, like another job?
Well, I mean, the main difference between Section 1 and Section 2, Section 1 only applies if it's a firefighter job related injury or illness. And in that case, you get the year of line of duty injury leave and any extensions granted by the council that's provided in the Civil Service Act. If it's if you're hurt on another job, let's break that into two categories. If you're hurt on another non-firefighter job, then clearly that wouldn't be a line of duty injury, and that would fall under section 2. It gets a little murky when a firefighter has another firefighting job. I know that there have been some amendments to the workers' compensation statute to require workers' compensation to compensate some sort of firefighting activities. That related to a few years ago, some Fort Worth firefighters participated in fighting a fire in a suburb and were killed, and the workers' comp legislation grew out of that.
Okay.
So I can't tell you off the top of my head what would be covered by section 1, but I have a feeling that it would sort of end up mirroring, if the case law were developed, and it's not, it would sort of mirror the workers' comp.
The workers' comp, okay.
Yeah.
And were there any changes to section 3 on that? I looked at the disability, it was.
I don't think so, but, you know, the contract right now describes the firefighter doctor, city doctor, panel of 3 doctors, but that just more or less mirrors the statute, 143.081. So, rather than put all that verbiage in the contract, I just said we follow the disability procedure of 081.
Okay.
There is one little change, and it's in really the last sentence of that section. And under the Civil Service Act, the reappointment right only applies if you've been drawing a pension from a firefighter relief and retirement fund. And I extended that so that the reappointment right could occur whether or not you've been drawing a monthly disability pension. But I would point out that reemployment is at the discretion of the commission. So it's not like you lose control there, if that makes sense. It just, I never understood why they made a distinction, because sometimes you won't apply for disability pension thinking you're going to recover, and, you know. And I've actually seen that happen a couple of times, so.
Okay, and let's see, Article 21 work schedules. From what I could tell, it looked like you pulled most of it straight from the old contracts.
I did. I pulled it from the old contract. I eliminated some overtime language, I think, that is covered in the overtime provision. I think in the contract as it's currently written, there's some overlap. They sometimes have provisions in 2 things that pertain to the same thing. I've eliminated that.
Okay.
So I do want to talk to you about section 1D as in dog, straight time compensation. The straight time is language that I've added. I don't think it's a change in the current practice. All you were really trying to say there was that the base and any supplemental pays you get is your full straight time pay for all your regularly scheduled hours. So I added straight time pay to make it clear, but I don't think that's a change in what's happening right now. I also, the current contract talks about it's paid for 216 hours in each 27-day work cycle, and that is and isn't true. 4 times a year you have a work cycle that has a Kelly day and you only work 192. So it still reflects the same thing. It's your full pay, your full strike time pay for all your regularly scheduled hours of work. So I don't think there was a change in what was intended, but there is a change in the language, and that's why I'm providing that kind of lengthy explanation, so you know it's not really an attempt to change the way things are happening.
Okay, yeah, this is, you consolidated a lot of things in this, section D.
I did.
Okay.
I did, but again, it's just trying to simplify the contract language. It's not trying to change the way things are happening.
Okay. Excuse me real quick.
The areas under, section 2 on work week duty hours, at the time this was originally written, when it's speaking of, fire prevention or training divisions,
Uh-huh.
I believe now a better terminology would be something to include all non-shift or
All 40-hour
non-operations.
work week people.
Yeah, we've increased a couple of divisions that aren't included in either of those two groups. That would be something to consider, unless you had another intent to that.
We didn't have another intent to that. We were trying to capture the current contract practice. So, you know, if there's, I left fire prevention and training because it was in there.
No, understood.
So, you know, by all means, something that encompasses all the 40-hour. It sounded kind of odd to me to say 40-hour personnel will work a 40-hour work week. But
What others you speak?
Logistics. Admin.
But yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that. I mean, that's the truth. So,
Okay.
and there's that special holiday provision. If you look at the top of page 2, subsection D, that's in the current contract. So that's not a change.
Okay, and that essentially gives, instead of 8-hour holidays, you give them 10-hour holidays because they're on the 410.
Yeah, and I think that I'm reading into it, and so I don't know if this is true, but I'm thinking that a lot of the administrative personnel, the people that work in these groups, are actually given the day off, as opposed to firefighters who, you know, are working in suppression and may be scheduled to work. They just put hours in their leave bank.
It's, because I do that. If I'm off on a Monday and holiday falls on Monday, and then I work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, then I would get the 10 hours for that Monday. Because I already did
okay.
my 40, but if I only work, if the holiday falls on Monday, and I only work, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, well, I really complete my 40 hours. You know what I mean?
So then you don't get the
so
10
you only
hours.
really,
in between.
if it's your scheduled day off, and you're gonna work the rest of the week, then that's when that comes in.
Oh, okay.
But if it falls on a Friday and you're scheduled to be off on Friday, you're not gonna get it.
Okay.
If there are no other questions about section 2, section 3 callbacks, there were some questions from my folks about whether we needed a revisions committee, because apparently a revisions committee recently completed work on some proposed changes that are in the pipeline.
Okay.
But it's in the contract right now, and I was thinking, well, it can just be kind of a standing committee if there's a, you know, they don't have to be actively in session a bunch, but if there comes a problem with the callback procedure, you've got the standing committee ready to meet and address it and maybe deal with it, so.
And, you're referring to the current, standard of procedure 101.09, and any of the revisions done by the previous revisions committee would be incorporated into that?
Right. In other
SOP.
words, whatever the SOP 101.09 is at the date we implement the agreement, that would be what I assume would be in the appendix B.
And any revisions to that SOP would have to be approved by both the city and the association?
Right, and that, again, that's language from the current contract.
And it doesn't have to be approved by the entire association's membership, it's only the executive board?
Yeah, the current contract provides, I guess, to streamline the process, you don't have to have a full ratification vote, you just, the E-board is entrusted with making approval to that.
Okay. And then the emergency callbacks looks like the status quo from the last contract.
As best yes. I seem to have lost my arrow. Oh, there it came back.
Okay, and then section 4, I didn't perceive any changes from the last contract, but.
No.
Roxy, I got those clarification questions answered to the fund balance. Do you want to?
Okay, do you want?
Yeah, sure. Somebody got a pencil, write this down because I have no computer. I mean, I've got something Johnny gave me that he calls a computer.
I stole my pen.
It's under here somewhere.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So these figures that I'm gonna give you are as of 9/30/2014, which was the end of the past fiscal year, okay? Because we're operating under the current fiscal year now. So
Right.
the past GASB or OPEB liability amount is $3,244,049. So
Say that
that's a
again?
reduction from the, what was it,
4.6. That's a goodly reduction.
3,244,049.
0.49.
And the fund balance, the fire fund balance, this is the adjusted fund balance, as of, again, 9/30/2014, is $3,586,880.58.
One more time. That's our health fund balance.
That's the adjusted health fund
3,586.
balance.
880.
And that amount that was
And
credited
58.
to our OPEB liability was deducted from the fund balance? Split them.
The 3.5 only has the current OPEB for the current year. So when I say adjusted fund balance, everything that needs to come out for the given year has been taken out of that amount, so that's the adjusted amount.
Yeah, because that went down, where was that taken from here? In other words, the amount that our OPEB liability was reduced came from where?
Are you talking about the 3.2, how?
Yes.
That's just based on adjustments that are being made. So you have firefighters that are retiring, that are going into Medicare Advantage plan, that reduces your liability if your, if your numbers get small. There's lots of things that adjust that liability. That's just the liability amount.
If I may. Now, is it correct that that amount can only be revised downward, or can it be revised upward?
No, it can go up. We made a number of changes, if you remember during the last fire contract negotiations, we made a bunch of changes to help reduce that liability amount, such as moving your post-65 retirees into our Medicare Advantage plan and things of that sort. But if you were to increase in numbers, or if you had an influx of retirees and firefighters who decided to retire and are pre-65, that would increase your liability.
If you hired 60 guys, it would increase your liability.
Does that make sense? Everybody good with that number?
Yeah. Okay.
Is this money actually moved somewhere, or is that just what's reported? Is
The
just accounted?
GASB, the OPEB is reported. And again, this number was as of and this is a moving number, because it's all
Right,
based on
right.
forecasting of claims and everything that entails.
Okay.
All right.
On to Article 22.
Oh, Article 22?
That was one of the two that I sent you.
Oh, yeah, okay.
More recently. I was just going numerical order. We can skip.
We'll do that. I have my notes right here. Let's see. Article 22. A lot of this looked like it was pulled from the old contract.
The section 1 on the standard hiring process is the old contract. It's not really a change to the status quo.
Okay.
I did try and pin down like what a 1-year list is. If the list is posted on October 8th, it remains in effect until the following October 8th. Believe me, you've had more contention over whether a list ended one day or the next day.
Right.
You said 1-year period, so that's what we're trying to avoid there.
I understand that. And just for clarification, this eligibility list here is different from the promotional lists.
Yeah, these are
Okay,
entry-level
these are just
eligibility
entry-level,
lists. And, you know, the fire chief, you know, in looking at the list, you know, I think has the right to pick and bypass and
Okay.
that sort of thing. Alternate hiring procedures, we look very hard at your proposal. I think the major change here, and I may ask some of my guys to address this because I think they could do it more clearly than I could perhaps, but we think that the alternative hiring ought to be extended not just to people with paramedic, but those that have some level of EMT as well. My understanding is that when you get people that come in and they're already paramedics, to some extent they've got to be untrained and retrained on the specific system that the Corpus Christi Fire Department uses, which is a very high level system. And that sometimes they've already got their paramedic in another system and they really don't fit well in the Corpus system until they've been retrained. And so if you bring them in as EMTs and give them the same paramedic training as all of our other Corpus Christi people get, then they're really better suited to work in our system. So we're not really trying to take anything away from here. We're actually trying to expand the alternative hiring right to hiring some of these people with EMT that then, you know, would take our paramedic course, which apparently is quite a good one, and be that much more ahead of the game. Did I describe that?
Make it look a little bigger.
But other than that, I don't know that there's a lot that is different from the current, from your proposal.
Okay. Yeah, one of the things that we had added was not only possessing the, at the
Not the
time, the
paramedic.
paramedic certification, also maintaining it, and you've added that, the EMTB, the EMT, is it I?
Yeah, for intermediate.
At the time of hirements, maintain it thereafter. Okay.
One more. That we have. What are you looking at?
I think that's what he was talking about.
Oh, Oh, yeah, they're asking me about section 2B, and this relates back to your proposal, that alternative hires are required to maintain certification for the life of their career. I mean, that's what you intended, right?
What, the initial intention when we were drafting this was that we didn't want to get somebody who was going to be get through the alternative hiring, have their paramedic when they first signed up, and then at some point lose it during the certification. But the goal would be to have them maintain it throughout the life of their career. We haven't talked about the EMS portion that you're going to be proposing, and we'll probably talk more about that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that thing about maintaining it for the life of their career, that may, I mean, we may want to look at that in the context of what we're doing on EMS generally. Because obviously we're trying to do something that works, that's equitable for the entire bargaining unit.
Right.
So, in fact, while y'all were looking at our proposals, I was really trying to get my head around exactly how EMS works here, and it's not, let's just say it's not intuitive. So, yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll be talking about that issue, under that subject, the EMT subject. I think we've, you know.
Let me ask you this, I probably should already know this answer, but, have y'all already used the alternative hire? Have y'all already alternatively hired?
We've done it twice.
And only very recently, right? Like the last couple of years, or?
The last one was probably about 2 years ago.
And did those guys, or maybe some women too, did they come in with the understanding that they would need to maintain paramedic or whatever it was?
I would assume so. I mean, that is a requirement of employment. So to let it go would be jeopardizing that.
Yeah, well, obviously if they're still within the first 8 years, but I know that some, depending on when you came in, are allowed to let it go after X amount of time. Yeah.
No, I'm trying not to read into it, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm just still trying to I'm just trying to understand the system in its entirety, so.
I don't think that would be a concern, because it would be after that date had been established.
Yeah.
That 85 date.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
We're
that
not
dates
adding
back in
alternative hirings part.
1985.
Well, there's there's a provision for people hired after 85, there's a provision for people hired after 2006, too, I mean, it's.
Anyone hired after 2006 has to maintain an EMT.
That's good.
Right.
So they could let their paramedic
Slide down to EMT.
slide down to EMT.
Okay, well, that's something we'll handle more definitively in the EMS article. That grows in my mind with each passing day. But, so a lot of this is your proposal,
Okay.
maybe slightly reworded, but. And then probationary period, section 3. We again looked at the proposal that you had made last year. We accepted a good deal of that proposal. You know, you in your proposal, by the way, you had taken the word full duty and you'd capitalize it. Capital F full, capital D duty. Which makes it sound like it's a term of art, but it wasn't defined in definitions, and it wasn't defined within your proposal. And we had a question about what does full duty mean to you? And we assume that full duty means when they actually go out into the stations.
I'll look at that, I'll see if I can pull it up right now, because I thought that in our proposal on definitions, we had included a definition for full duty.
Hang on a second, I'll tell you real quick. You talking about the 2014 negotiations?
Yes, sir, let's see.
I see a definition of fiscal year and personal leave.
On proposal that
Here it is,
we-
proposal 12.
Proposal 12 on April 21st, 2014, and I think it's number 18. In 18, we had proposed that, in the context of the other proposals at that time, that full duty shall mean that a cadet has graduated from the fire academy and has been assigned to shift.
Well, I think that's what we were thinking it meant,
Yeah.
so. We
And
may
I-
wanna add, I mean, I don't know how important it is, but we may wanna consider adding that to the definitions.
In the last contract.
Or I'll put it in
was-
this,
Yeah, in the last contract, it was a little bit iffy as to whether it was when they actually graduated or when they got assigned to something. And so we wanted to make it clear, delineate when that line was. That there was an issue on that, I remember. So that was one of the reasons that we defined that word full duty and included a definition in context of the proposals that we had presented at that time. Okay. Now, on your proposal, section 3, probationary period for new employees, the first sentence says, a new employee in the fire department shall serve a probationary period of 18 months that begins the date of first employment. I guess that's why we had done full duty, because does that mean when he was,
that begins on, it should say on the day.
on the date of first employment, meaning after he's graduated from the academy? No, from when he
No, on the
gets
date of
hired?
first, yeah, date of
Okay.
hire.
That's the way it is now.
In fact, we probably ought to change that from first employment to hire to make sure that that's clear.
Yeah, I was just, I didn't know what it meant by date of first employment, because it could be, you know, if a cadet doesn't, it could be the day that he was graduated and assigned a shift, you know, I didn't know. So the intent of that is from the first date of hire into the academy.
Right, and then I see something that actually I think, my folks may disagree, but is a mistake. The third paragraph under section 3 probably ought to be someplace else. I think I meant to put that in the promotions article.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't have anything to do with the probationary period for new employees.
Okay.
So let me just. That just didn't get taken out, but it really doesn't go there. I mean, it's there now, but it doesn't, it belongs someplace else, I think.
So the last paragraph of section 3.
We're probably gonna ask that it be removed and put in the, promotions article, which promotions is another one where, you know, that there seem to be stuff relating to promotions in a lot of different places, so that's one of my next big
Okay.
chores.
Yeah, one of the big chores is to organize this in a way that is readable and
Yeah.
you can actually find it. There's things, I've been reading this thing since 2011, and even today I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was there. Okay.
Are there any more questions on 22? Or?
I had a question, I'm trying to figure out what I meant by it.
Okay. Close the
On this probationary period, would the, Are there instances where there would be extended times to acquire any kind of certification that would cut into the probationary period and?
No, I mean, the current contract has, had a provision in it that didn't make sense about extending it per Article 1, Number 16 to obtain paramedic certification.
Okay.
You eliminated that from the proposal that you made back in 2014, and we, in agreement with you, we felt that a hard and fast date,
Okay,
rather than a sliding date that nobody's certain about, would be.
okay.
But, I mean, if you have rethought that and have a different, you certainly,
We have to analyze it, just, you know, when I'm thinking about it, if there's an extended time that one particular cadet may have getting a certification, I don't know how that would happen. But the probationary period out in the field where they would be evaluated would become shorter. You know,
Mhm.
that's just one of the concerns, but we'll talk about it.
okay.
I think those are all the questions I had on that one.
Okay.
Okay, so the next one,
26.
26. Okay. 26, I just have to go through, this is just a severability clause.
Right, but I've added a second sentence
Mhm.
that I want to explain. You know, the way the contract reads right now, well, if we declare a certain provision invalid, the rest of the contract goes on unaffected, and that provision's just not. And, you know, to some extent, that can deprive the party that provision was designed to help. It can deprive them of the benefit of the bargain.
Mhm.
You know, we agreed on a contract with 10 things. Now one of them's been declared invalid. Would I have signed the contract with only those 9? So the idea here is if we get something that's declared invalid by a court of law, that the parties then go back and try to negotiate an alternate provision to replace the struck down provision that meets whatever the illegality was, but that gives them at least portion of the benefit of the bargain that they made. You know,
Okay.
so that, and, you know, I said, well, you know, and if we can't agree on what the replacement ought to be, then we can, you know, use the impasse procedure, which we have yet to talk about, although I've already been looking at the impasse proposal y'all made the last time. But that's just a way of making sure that in the rare instance where that happens, that both parties have a chance to still obtain the full benefit of the bargain, or as close to it as they can. Article 27. I, you know, eliminated that phrase that has been, I'm looking at section 1. I've eliminated that phrase that's been so much a point of contention between the parties. Because frankly, I don't think we'll ever agree on what it means. But I had never seen it in anybody else's contract before. And usually these types of provisions are put in the ground rules. And surely we are going to negotiate ground rules, as we do every time when we negotiate one of these agreements. And I really think that, you know, it's more appropriate to put something like that in the ground rules when you're actually starting a new contract negotiation and you're aware of what the conditions are on the ground. And in fact, y'all did that. This time around, you negotiated another provision that more or less mirrored this provision. And so that's the idea there is that rather than us trying to hammer out something that has been the source of so much contention, we just eliminate it and agree that, you know, we'll negotiate whatever restrictions apply in the ground rules. So that's the thinking. Then section 2, I've modified the statutory bargaining provision a little bit. under the statute, you have to, if you agree to extend the 60-day bargaining period, you have to do so in writing. Extensions can only last 15 days. And so, you know, I'm negotiating 45, 60 days past the 60-day bargaining period, and, you know, every 2 weeks we're having to do another extension. So I just said it can be extended for specified periods by mutual agreement. It doesn't change the authority of either party that currently exists to say, no, I'm tired of talking about this. But it does make it a little bit easier to extend it.
Okay.
And frankly, very few contracts get done in 60 days. So. And then section 3 is just sort of the current, it's in the current contract. Oh, one thing I did want to say about that I noticed this, but I didn't know how to correct it, is the very last sentence of section 3. It talks about selecting your own representatives not only for bargaining the contract, but for, you know, other things like processing grievances and arbitrations. And so I don't like things that are, you know, buried and hidden, and you don't know that they're there. Like, if I'm filing a grievance under the contract, I'm going to go to the grievance procedure, I'm going to read it. I wouldn't necessarily know that this was in there.
Right.
But so I'm just pointing it out to you. If we want to put something in the grievance section about it, that's probably more appropriate, but I just left it in there because that's where it is now.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
29 is no strike, no lockout, no furloughs. I was amazed, or not amazed, nothing amazes me anymore, that there was not a no strike, no lockout provision. I know that the statute already prohibits strikes, lockouts, slowdowns, etc. I added a provision about furloughs. I don't think that in the context of public safety employees, furloughs ever make sense. So this just asks the city to commit not to doing unilaterally, you know, furloughs of what I think is an essential public safety service. So. Fire protection is just one of those things that no holidays, always needs to be there.
On furloughs, is that also applied to your workforce reductions?
No,
Okay.
no. You can reduce the size of the workforce. And, you know, if you came to us and said, hey, we either have to do a RIF or we have to do a furlough, the article preserves the ability to say, you know, for the union to agree to a furlough, you know.
Okay.
So put to that Hobson's choice, they might, but on Article 31, drug and alcohol testing, it's pretty much just what's in the contract right now. And in
Yeah,
fact, it attaches as Appendix C,
And that's
whatever
what's
the
in
current alcohol and drug policy.
That's what I was gonna ask. Do you know, does anybody know any of the history as to, how it came about that, changes to the drug and alcohol, policy had to be made by mutual agreement between the city and the association?
I can't speak to this particular thing because I don't know when the drug and alcohol was first put in. I know that drug and alcohol policies have been a source of a lot of tension, especially in the public safety area. There was, sorry.
That's okay.
Let me put that on Buzz.
Yeah, there'll be a penalty fee for that.
you know, there was that, there's been a lot of contention over the years about whether or not, you know, drug testing of public safety employees stands in a different relation than does other employees generally. There was even that Arizona Supreme Court case that was cert denied by the U.S. Supreme Court that said you couldn't treat them differently, but then there are other cases that go the other way. So the tension is always between the city and the firefighters, quite frankly, wanting to ensure that you have a drug-free workforce on the one hand, and on the other hand, protecting individual employee rights. Because those of us who represented firefighters and police officers a lot know that a lot of those tests don't come out right if they're not done right. And so you seem to have arrived over the years in your contract in a system that appears to work for all concerned. You have, you know, random testing, you have reasonable suspicion testing, and accident testing. And as far as I know, there are no problems. So I just didn't see a need to fix it or change it. But if you say, well, we want to revise that policy, then immediately you get those concerns ratcheted back up. You know, protect the employee from, you know, wrongful, you know, because, you know, once you're tabbed in a drug test, you know, you can prove it wrong a dozen times and the sting doesn't go off the, you know, the allegation. So I'm just saying that maybe this isn't the contract where we want to look at doing that, but I mean, if you wanted to form a joint subcommittee to look at the current policy, but basically I'm not aware of any problems that anybody's.
Okay, and I was just asking just because I didn't know, and I didn't know what the history was on that. And then the last one is 32.
Right. And, you know, we did look at the proposal that y'all made. Our feeling at this point is that the status quo is adequate, and so our proposal really reflects the status quo. But I didn't want you to think we just ignored the proposal that you made last year. We did look at it and talk about it.
One of the changes I noticed that you specifically state that there's one deputy chief.
That's current practice. There's always been just the one.
Okay. And then when people are appointed to deputy chief and assistant chief, does that create additional, I'm just asking what your understanding is, does that create additional vacancies or?
No.
Yeah. I mean, if they come from the bat chief rank or the captain rank, as I
Uh-huh.
think some of them can,
Yeah, right.
then obviously when they get appointed, that creates those vacancies.
Okay.
Now, under the Civil Service Act, if you appoint somebody as like the assistant fire chief, you know, ranked immediately below, and they retreat back to their old spot, that can create a forced surplus, but there's a civil service provision for dealing with that too.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Okay, as far as the questions that we had on those proposals, that has covered what we have so far.
Okay.
For today, I think that we're gonna hold off, until the next session to start putting the rest of our proposals down so that we have, time. I'll try to, I can't make any promises, but I will try to, if they're prepared, to get them ahead of time, like you were trying as well. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah,
So
it
I'm not
didn't-
making, yeah.
Didn't end up working for me this time, but.
But I will try. One of my goals is to try and make this as efficient as we can. Given the short time span that, you know, that we had to prepare for this and that we all got together, you know, I'm usually a lot more prepared to have everything ready, but as we're kind of all working as we go, so I will try my hardest to try and get that done.
Okay.
I got a lot of people I got to talk to put these things together, so we will do
And I will
that.
continue work, I mean, I'm gonna send you an updated, probably be Monday, but I'll send you an updated status sheet, just kind of showing the
Okay.
proposals I've made and where they're at, and it also, the ones that are blank are the ones that I'm still working on.
Okay.
So,
The emails that you send me from Johnny's email, do you want me to forward them to you so you have a copy of those?
that'd be great.
Okay, because I just remembered I didn't see you copy
Or did we
yourself.
copy
We
me?
copied.
Oh, you.
We may have, but if you see one where I wasn't copied, by
I'll
all
forward them
means.
to you when I'm
Yeah.
forwarding and doing all my stuff. So I will post, the meetings for the next 4 sessions, which would be, Friday, February 13th, Friday, February 20th, Thursday, February 26th, and Thursday, March 5th.
Okay.
And those will all be here, and I'll confirm, I'll send you an email, but I think they're all in the same room. It's definitely the same location, and I think we're trying to keep the same rooms,
Okay. Very
just for
good.
consistency. So,
Very good.
okay. Have y'all
Appreciate
been,
it.
I've been happy with this play. This is really,
Yeah,
really
it's
nice.
fine.
Yeah,
Totally fine.
okay. I think that's all I have right now. And I'll be emailing you those postings, and, if there's any information that you decide that you need during the interim, just feel free to email me and we'll start gathering for you and try and get it to you as soon as possible.
Okay.
Okay?
Great.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.